Hello, 1 Billion in Financing members. My name is Cherie. I'm the founder of 1 Billion in Financing, where our mission is to help 1,000 entrepreneurs raise over $1 billion in capital for their growing enterprises. I'm so excited today because I have a woman that's actually not only a publicity guru, but someone who's actually won 4 Emmys. And she is here today to talk about the importance of publicity, how we can use publicity within our businesses for lead generation and sales conversion. She's very interesting because not only was she on the television side, but now she's an entrepreneur, so she understands what we are going through in terms of not only getting publicity, but how to monetize that publicity and use it so that we can attract the investment that we need from either the banks or the angel investors. So, Jan, welcome to the 1 Billion in Financing community.
I thought you were calling to tell me that I'd won $1 billion in financing or something.
No, however, if you want to, we can help you get that, but not quite yet. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you came to actually write your book.
Okay. First of all, when someone's hair is as gray as mine, you don't ask that question because it's a long story. So I just grew up with a daddy who preached on street corners and in nursing homes and jails. So speaking has never, ever, ever been something that I feared. I led an elephant into Boston Square Garden years ago, and there were 16,000 people in it. It was packed full, and I blew a whistle and welcomed everybody to the circus. And I had no fear. But if you give me an Excel spreadsheet, I could get nervous. So I understand how people can get nervous. I understand how they can be shy about promoting themselves or shy about asking for free publicity. So I figured after almost 30 years on television, if I took some time to write a book to answer my most often asked question, how do I get myself on TV, it might really help some people. And as we've been sitting here, an email came through from a woman who wants to know how to get herself on TV. So it just asked a lot. And I guess the main thing is, if you think about your business inside of a box, nobody can see it. It's dark in there. Nobody knows what you do. And the only way to open that up ever so slightly is to, without free publicity, is to spend a ton of money on advertising and marketing. And for entrepreneurs, that's the last thing we want to do because they don't have that kind of cash usually in the coffers. So then the next thing that happens is people say, okay, I'll do social media. I'll build it with social media. Well, that's all well and good, and I use it as fast as I can. But it's also kind of like playing what I call pin the tail on the donkey. You just stick a pin somewhere and hope that hits. Stick another pin somewhere else and hope that's the one that somebody will respond to. So building your business that way can take a long time till you find your right audience. But if you think of the people in your own backyard as your potential clients, researchers actually say that there's no faster way to build your business than to do public speaking. And that's as if you're putting yourself on the free publicity market to talk about your business. The second way is to get free television gigs or do free radio gigs. And I don't mean Blogspot, and I don't mean YouTube. I mean get on the television in your neighborhood, on the morning show or the evening show, or somewhere where people can see you really quickly without having to do anything other than turn on the television and maybe twist the remote around a little bit. So that's why I think it helps to build your business fast, because you find your clients right where you are. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, let me ask you this, and this may be a bit of a curveball to you, but let's say that my business is not consumer-based. Mm-hmm. I'm doing business to business. Maybe I am selling some sort of a software to the Fortune 500. Do you still find that getting publicity would be an option for someone like that? And if so, would there be different ways that they would get publicity versus our local Michael & Sons, which is an HVAC repair service, and the way that they do it?
Let me ask a question. what do you think researchers say about where Fortune 500 company execs get their national news, national and local news?
From what I understand, they actually watch the local news in order to,
early in the morning, 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning.
Exactly, like while they're working out or something like that.
Exactly. And so, of course, they get it by the headlines on their computers as well. But no, people haven't just given up on local television, especially those who are old enough to have become big hotshot Fortune 500 executives. So they're still watching. And then the smaller businesses that they might sell to, where might they be watching? Same thing, early morning news. Also, early morning news is a black hole, meaning they hardly have enough crews or they hardly have enough people, shooters, photographers, editors, and they hardly have enough news unless they take it from the national news feeds to fill up 4:30 to 5, 5 to 5:30, 6 to 6:30, 7 up to 7 o'clock in the morning. And then some stations have even another half an hour of news. So they're looking for interviewees. They're looking for subjects that they can put in. It can't be just anything. It has to be something that's of great importance to somebody else who's viewing. So I think that there's, and I may be the only person on the planet who thinks this, but I think there's still a big place for business-to-business folks on local television. On a local station now here in town, there is a business station, a business show on a station, and there's a person who comes on and talks about small business just on that show, that half an hour show. So there are people who are paying attention to it. On the morning show on a CBS station in D.C., there's a woman who does business and consumer news. So I don't think of the consumer just as the person who is buying something for their kids or buying something for their home. I think of consumers as those other small businesses that buy from bigger businesses.
Right. I was watching, I think it was CNN a few weeks ago with the whole Obamacare thing, and I found it interesting because there was a gentleman that came on that owns a software company, and he was talking about how he read the code with the Obamacare website and the changes that he would make. And I'm not trying to make this political. I'm just trying to make a point out of this. I thought it was very interesting that he tied in his software company, which, you know, a regular consumer would never use, to something that was of national importance. And again, he was on CNN, which is watched by both consumers and executives, business executives. So I thought that was very interesting, and he was able to tie it in. That is very interesting.
And if he used examples, I'm sure he used his own business as the examples. It's called internal selling. You're talking about a process or a plan, but you're subliminally selling to the audience as well, when there could possibly be somebody who needs what you have to sell.
Right,
so
right.
The other thing, if you think about it, people write business books all the time. Those business books end up on television. They end up on CNN. They end up on local news. So those business books are selling abstract concepts like leadership, or in my case, speaking better, or things like that everybody can use, from the top executive on down to the mom who's trying to convince her son not to be goth anymore. So I think that there's a lot of room for both selling, putting out publicity for small consumers, to smaller businesses, to the big hotshots.
Great. So let's talk about getting on TV and the fact that it seems so difficult to actually get on TV. As someone who's an insider, what are we as small businesses doing right? What are we doing wrong? What can we improve so that we have the best chance of actually getting on TV?
If you surveyed 1,000, I'm just going to make up these numbers, but if you surveyed 1,000 entrepreneurs, small businesses, and asked them if they had been on local news, the answer for a huge percentage of those would be no. Then you ask the next question, well, what have you tried to get on? Well, I sent an email. Well, I put together a nice press kit. Well, I left messages, but nobody called me back. How many times have you heard that?
Mm-hmm.
So here's what happens inside of a newsroom. They're all, as I said earlier, on skeletal crews. You hear all the time about the cutbacks that YouTube, that the web, that cable shows have cut into the viewerships, and they have. And when that happens, that means those stations don't have as many advertisers and they don't have as much money to spend to keep the stations up and running. So that means a producer that I might have worked for 20 years ago is now having to do the jobs of two producers. It means an editor who might have cut 3 or 4 stories for a story for a show is in there cutting 8 stories now. Everybody is just crammed, running 100 miles an hour, like every entrepreneur I know, trying to do everything. And so when you send an email, it becomes one of 500 that producer might get for the day. If you send a letter or a press kit to a star on a local show, that becomes a pile of paper. And if you leave a message on an answering machine, it gets deleted when their voicemail is full. We just hit delete all and start over again. So it's really difficult to get attention. And this is an old-fashioned idea, but direct mail used to say, send something lumpy and somebody might open it. That's the way I feel about getting yourself on television. It's not enough to send a book and say, I'm an author, pick me. I think you need to put that book in a box or a basket with other things surrounding them so that when it comes to the newsroom, either the mailman has brought it up or you had to get called to go out to the lobby to pick up the mail. You bring it into the newsroom and it needs to be opened. And when something interesting and exciting starts coming out of that box or out of that basket or out of that bag, then other people in the newsroom, including the producers sitting at their desk, say, what's that? What's that? What's that? And if there's something to eat in it, they say it faster and they're like vultures.
You
so
know, as crazy as that sounds and as simple as that sounds, I know that works because anytime I send food to another office, all of a sudden people are gathered around and, you know, the conversation is, well, who sent this to you? And the person is all of a sudden talking about how they got the package and the story of how they got the package.
Mm-hmm. I'll give you one of the best examples I ever had as a television reporter. And I was in Boston on a talk show. And I got in the mail a little white, fluffy kitty cat. I got in the mail a few days later, it was nothing. The next few days I got another one, and it was a piece of red string. And a few days later, I got 2 tickets and information about how to catch a bus to see Cats on Broadway. And they put all the Boston TV reporters who covered arts and entertainment on a bus and took us to see Cats. Well, don't you know that when I got that little kitty cat, I thought, what is going on here? And I every day was looking to see what else was coming in the mail that would give me an answer. And it was a week or 2 before I got the answer. And then what an incredible gift that was. So also there's a silly example here in town. There is an Armenian church, and every year that Armenian church has a festival, and every year that Armenian church puts together a whole tray of baklava and all kinds of incredible goodies, and they hand deliver it to a weatherman. And don't you know that every year that weatherman stands up and says, okay, it's time for the festival. We got our big tray of baklava and other goodies, and he hands them over to the anchors to eat. Don't you know that even though that's been done over and over, it never stops because now he has a connection to that group.
And actually, if it did stop, he probably would ask, what happened to my baklava this year?
You got it. You got it.
Yeah.
Exactly. He'd be calling them. So I'm going to give you some just small examples. there's a woman who's a health coach, and she sent an email out to her people, and I happened to be on her list, and it said, eat, drink, and still shrink at the holidays. And I called her, and I said, oh, my gosh, that's a great title. That's a great title. You should consider a TV segment. And she said to me, oh, that's not made for TV. That's a series of seminars I'm doing. Now, I said, duh. If you want people to come to that seminar, then that seminar series, then let's put it together in a segment. So I worked with her for 3 or 4 times. We put together what I call a segment in a box, where she took a piece of laminated paper, and on it she wrote the introduction, her name and the introduction to the segment. She wrote 7 questions the interviewer could ask. She wrote the outro saying, if you want more information, the website is. And she also wrote a follow-up segment, all on one page, brightly colored paper, in a basket. The other things in that basket were things like almonds, fruit, red wine, dark chocolate, all things that, and I'm not a wine drinker, so don't go there, but I am definitely a chocolate user. So she put all of that in a basket with a big paper plate, and on that paper plate had been written, eat, drink, and still shrink at the holidays. Well, don't you know, an early morning producer called her, got her on, she brought in the basket, went through all the items, and at the end of it, she said, now, if you want to keep it going after your New Year's resolution, I can show you what your plate should look like. We'll do that the next time. And it was just as if it were a part of an answer to one of the interviewer's questions. I think she's now been on 4 times.
That is amazing. And how many people actually either joined her website or came to her seminars?
Well, I think that the seminar series had already taken place by the time she got her act together, but she definitely built her list. I don't know a number, but she definitely built her list.
Which is also part 1 of what we're trying to do, is build our list. So
exactly. Then she has name recognition, and what do you think she has sitting on the front page of her website?
Yeah,
credibility,
with
a CBS eye stuck on it. So that can't hurt. It can't hurt. The other thing, too, besides just television, is it doesn't cost you a penny to do public speaking. And every Rotary Club, every church basement, every women's group needs speakers on a fairly regular basis. So who are the people who get those? Not the people who wait to be called, but the people who go online, find out who the leaders are of that particular group, and start sending stuff, not an email. They send stuff. And another guy who actually ended up on television 3 or 4 times has written a book called Chief Daddy Officer. So at Father's Day, I said, you need to send some cookies to the stations. And he said, I don't do cookies. I said, of course you don't, but you should. And you should have somebody make some in the shape of a necktie. That's a daddy. A $sign. That's a little girl. I mean, that shows it's business related. And little girls. And he said, what do those 3 things have in common? I'm a father who had to raise my daughter from the time she was 7 by the only thing I knew, which is business principles. It's all in this book, Chief Daddy Officer. So sure enough, he got plenty of attention from 3 television stations for Father's Day. So it was timely, number 1. It had something interesting besides a little book. Now, his wife, who does some of his PR, said, should I just have those delivered by a courier? I said, let me get this straight. Do you want the courier to have a personal conversation with the lobby guard, or do you want the lobby guard to call the reporter and come out and have that personal conversation with the courier? Or do you want to be standing there if the guard calls the reporter whose name is on the package and she happens to come out to get it? And that happened to him at one of the stations. His wife was standing right there when the reporter came out, and she got on. She got him on. So I think that it requires a woman, when I said something about this on the blog, a woman sent an email. She's written a similar book, and she says, I never fell for the brownies ploy when I was a reporter. And so I'm not talking about just sending a batch of brownies. I'm saying send something that's directly related to your topic and have it all prepared. It's absolutely made for dummies. They don't have to think, and it's easy and quick. And you're local, and you can be had fast.
Right. And one of the interesting things that happened to me weeks ago was a friend and I were talking about potentially doing a radio show on NPR.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally am not really afraid of the telephone. I know that other people are, but I'm not. So I end up on the phone with this producer, and I'm talking to her, and she tells me what I need to put into my package in order to be considered. And I said to her, or asked her, well, you know, how would you like me to follow up with you? Would you want me to email you? She said, no, I never check my emails. Do exactly what you just did. Call me back.
See, that's great. Now, here's what you do. If people say to me, I don't watch television or I don't listen to local news on the radio, I think that's the best possible place to do the research about when to call.
Mm-hmm.
You would never call and ask for that producer while she's in the middle of a show. You wait until it's over. And do you know why you call right when it's over? Because some producer's going to pick it up hoping somebody says she did a good job on that show.
Yes.
So you watch television, you figure out who in your neighborhood, in your area, does environmental reporting. And you have a bunch of kids who are saving the bay, so you put a bunch of live crabs in and say, if you want to keep eating these for dinner, come find out how local kids are trying to save the bay. If you know who the tennis player is, then you invite that tennis player to be the MC for your tennis charity, and while he's there, you schmooze him to death, and then after he's been there, you send tennis ball cans loaded with M&Ms saying, would love to chat some more about this for a segment for TV. I mean, you just have to think beyond what the written word says when you're trying to get their attention. And what I say in my book, Get Yourself on TV, is think out your eyeballs. This is not talk radio. It's action. They want to see moving parts. If you're a speaker, they don't want to hear wah, wah, wah. They want to see you pull things out of a box and have a table full of props. So it's about what can the audience see? What can they feel? What can the interviewer touch that the audience pretends it's touching?
Absolutely, because I understand from the books that I've read is that this is show business, and your job is to actually produce, you know, or at least show them how this is going to keep the audience that they have, if not add more audience members.
And you need to know who. You need to know who on that station, as a reporter or an anchor, is your best advocate for that.
Absolutely.
So it's not, they always say, I don't know who the producers are. Well, watch the credits. Go on LinkedIn. You can find 25,000 TV producers on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all available information. You can call the front desk and ask.
And it doesn't take that long to figure it out, too, once you're in tune to it. And I've noticed that as well. You
could probably name 2 reporters right in town who do moms segments.
Mm-hmm.
And so what do you send to them? Things that babies need, things that babies use, your product for making sure babies don't get bitten by bugs. It's all organic. That's what you send, along with some fresh, my granddaughter called them BBs, pacifiers, whatever it might be. You send something so that they know you've paid attention to their segments.
Right.
If you happen to find a producer's name, you put both names on an object that you're dropping off or sending.
Right. Well, let's talk, because I know we're running out of time, let's talk a little bit about your book and what's in it, because you gave us a lot of what I call general information, but if we want to really delve into this topic, tell us about your book and how people can get it.
Well, first of all, you can get it by going to my website, www.foxtalks.com. And it's headed to Amazon, but it's on a review process right now, and I'm told it'll only take another few days. So I guess now they look everything over very carefully, but it will end up on Amazon as well. So the the things that are in that book, it's kind of divided into a couple of things. Number one is how to watch TV to find out who your target is, who the person is that needs something from you in order to get yourself on TV. So it tells you how to watch television. The next thing it does is it tells you how to watch it for who the interviewers are. And I name them. They're interrupters. Those are the ones who just like to hear themselves talk and they barely even ask you a question. They tell your whole segment in the introduction and hear themselves talk. So I tell you how to deal with the interrupter. I tell you how to deal with the next, the kind of reporter or interviewer who just goes next, meaning they've looked at your list and they go right down your list. Well, the next question I have for you is, they don't think, they don't hear the answer, they just do the next. And so I talk about those kinds of interviewers so that when you get in there, you're going to know exactly how to deal with that type of interviewer. Then I tell you the usual, what to dress, how to dress. Don't wear a muumuu. I had interviewed a muumuu once out on a Boston pier, and at the end of the segment, I was thanking her, and I turned to the other camera to introduce the next segment, and I hear this screech, 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 and I look over, and the woman's muumuu is caught in the hinge of a captain's chair, and she's dragging it along behind her, but when she turns around to look at it, she doesn't see anything moving, and so she starts off again. The cameraman and I were dying. So you have to really think about, okay, how's this going to fit in that chair? How should I dress to be like the anchor person or like the talk show host? They like to see people who look more like them than who are very different. My daughter, on the other hand, has huge reddish curly hair, and she did traffic on another station in town. And when she was doing traffic, they said, the Metro traffic people said, shouldn't she cut her hair? And the general manager said, oh, no. She's known as the girl with the hair. Any moniker is better than none. So if you have something about you that does stand out, like a certain hairstyle or a certain way of dressing that's part of who you are, feel free. Otherwise, look at what they wear, look at how they dress and fit in. And they're more than likely to take you the second time because you've honored how they look. And I'm not saying don't be yourself, but within some kinds of boundaries there. So I tell you how to do that. Men don't wear zigzaggy ties because they zigzag all over the television. It's called moraying. So don't do that. Big jewelry gets all caught up in the microphone and you hear the clankety, clankety, clank. And then I don't know who told men that dark red dye that sticks on the top of your head is attractive. It's not. Natural is better. Comb-overs aren't cool. So I say all of that stuff in the book. And then I make you look at the kinds of chairs. If it's all possible, you want to stand up and demo something. If not, look at the way the chairs on the set make the people sit. And 9 times out of 10, they're all slouched back. So I teach you to sit on the edge of your chair and lean into the interviewer with great interest and passion. Then I tell you all about how to talk, how to vary your tone, how to vary your pace, how to get loud, how to get soft, how to throw in humor without swallowing the punchline. So it's how to talk once you get there. And then the last thing is I tell you, not the last, but I tell you how to talk in 15-second sound bites. And then the last thing is how to get invited back. And the way you get invited back is in as you hear the anchor person or the interviewer start to wrap up, you have a built-in tease for the next thing you want to do. For example, if it's something about mothers against drunk driving, then the last thing you might want to say is, and next time we can talk about programs that are really saving our children on the street.
Right.
And so, of course, she says, yes, we'll invite you back to do that. So you throw it in without their knowing.
Right. And I see certain people that are invited back over and over again for different topics. They're all related, but they're all slightly different. And, and I think that that's amazing. And you are right. When you go to someone's website, are you looking at 2 different consultants, and one of them has been featured on all of these news networks, and the other one just, says hire me as a consultant, which one are you going to go for?
I'm going to go for the one that's been invited back, the one who's been on more than one, the one who's got a video right there showing who they are and how they work.
Right, and also media begets media, meaning that if you get on one, it just takes one to showcase yourself, and then once you do a great job, you get invited on other media outlets.
Well, there is a trick to that. I'll just try to tell it to you quickly. Every station, ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, all of those networks have what we call news feeds. And that means if I do a really great consumer story in D.C., that evening I put it on the CBS national feed. So one day I'm out in the middle between Beaufort, North Carolina, and Defusky Island, where I'm going to play golf, and I'm on a boat, and I hear my voice come on the television. And I look up, and there I am with a segment that I did 2 or 3 weeks ago on some consumer story. They've picked it up off the feed and put it on the North Carolina television station. And all my family in Indiana used to watch, and they would know when I was on the national news feed before I did. Now, it doesn't mean it hits national news. It means that Indianapolis doesn't have enough reporters to fill an hour of a show, so they'll take something off the feed.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
So when you go to a local station, you then ask. CBS is NewsPath. So if I wanted to contact a NewsPath reporter or a NewsPath producer, how would I do that? And so maybe that producer's had a good enough time with you to tell you. And then you do the same thing at NBC, the same thing at Fox. If I wanted to get it on the national news feed, who could I talk to there? And not only that, you could call up all those national outlets, their national headquarters, and ask to speak to the producer of the news feed. And sometimes you get on. And you say, I've been on the local in D.C., I've been on the local in Boston, so I wanted to send this on to you for your use. They're grateful to have stuff to stick on those feeds.
Absolutely. Well, I know that we are out of town, so 1 Billion in Financing members, please visit foxtalks.com and let Jan know that you came from 1 Billion in Financing. I'm sure that she'll take extra good care of you as you're ordering the book. And, again, this is so important for us to know how to use publicity, so I'm so happy to have Jan and her book, Get Yourself on TV, that you can order through foxtalks.com.
Now, Cherie, one more thing.
Yes.
Anybody out there listening who takes any of these tips or who buys that book and you get yourself on TV, send me a clip or send me a note about it, and you'll make the next book. How a whole bunch of people from Cherie's network ended up on TV.
Fantastic. Okay. I'm actually going to put that together.
Okay, there you go.
Put that together as a campaign so that 2014 will definitely be the year of getting on TV.